Hi there, welcome back to another project update for my large scale Killa Kan. The arm joints on the Games Workshop Killa Kans resemble a ball and socket joint. I knew I wouldn't be able to rely on friction alone to hold the arms in position, so I had to come up with a way to provide a similar range of movement, but with a means to lock the pose in place. My first task was to achieve the up and down movement for the arm elevation. I'd purchased a couple of these 38mm ABS hemispherical domes early on in the project, which are just about the right size for a scaled up version of the ball. I also ordered a bunch of these 8mm diameter collets that can be tightened up onto a 3mm axle. I cut a 10mm wide slot into the dome and built a structure from 2mm styrene to fit inside it to support the pivot. I made a collar of plastic tube to fit around the collet, drilling the hole for access to the grub screw. I also cut a short length of steel rod and filed flats onto each end. I decided to just build a stub that I could later attach the full arm onto. Here's the stub half assembled. Note the tube from before that will house the collet. I superglued the collet into the tube, roughing up its surfaces to give the glue something to grip onto. I then added the other side and sanded everything smooth. Here you can see how the stub rotates freely on the axle pivot until you tighten the grub screw, which locks it in place. I need to stop the pivot axle turning in the supports, otherwise the arm stub would still rotate even with the collet tightened. I added some pieces of 7mm tube around the protruding ends of the axle, which I will fill with 2-part epoxy. The flats I filed onto the ends of the axle should mean it can't just come loose and turn within the glue. Here is the arm elevation in action. Next up I worked on the rotational movement. I started by attaching a mounting hub to the underside of the dome pivot structure. Into that I glued a short length of steel rod. The arm socket was built in 3 layers. The first stage was the rings to retain the dome. The topmost ring has a chamfered aperture, slightly smaller than the diameter of the dome. Stage 1 complete. The second stage was the cog shape. Once the 4 layers were glued together, I went through the following process to fill in the teeth. I stuck 0.5mm plastic card to each side. Then filed these flush. I then stuck 0.5mm plastic in between and on the ends of each tooth. And finally filed those flush. Stage 2 complete. The third stage is the base of the arm socket and will house the collet to lock the rotational movement. I added some spacer strips the same height as the collet and a tube to mount it in. The smaller diameter tube will act as a tunnel from the centre to the outside edge to allow access to the grub screw. With the top disc in place, I wrapped a strip of 1mm styrene around the edge. Stage 3 complete. Here you can see how each of the elements fit together. And finally, although not yet fully glued, here's how it looks in place on the can. I hope you've enjoyed this update. Until next time, thanks for watching.